Hi, people. I'm Mia. Tell me, do you already drive like an arrogant guy from my school? I thought that soon I would have a car and I would be able to prove them that I am no worse than them. But instead of a car, I got a horse. How did that happen? Well, just listen. I have long dreamed of having a cool car, but not because I wanted it for myself. It's more because of my classmates who were already 16 years old. They kept teasing me for the fact that I still ride with my dad when their parents already bought them cool cars. Well, to be honest, I studied in a private school with a bunch of wealthy kids, and I come from a rich family too. But I hate my classmates who only talk about how much money they spend on their clothes and phones. They also tease other less well-off children who entered our school thanks to their brains. I wanted to stick it to them, so I dreamed about how my dad would buy me a car that would be cooler and more expensive than theirs. Now I realize that it was a stupid idea to try to prove something to those spoiled kids. But then I even enrolled in a driving school in secret. I was going to turn 16 soon, after all, and my parents would no doubt give me a red convertible or something. I had to hurry. Still, after a couple of lessons with an instructor, it quickly became clear that I was not a very good driver, and the training was going to be more difficult than I expected. There were absolutely no problems at the circuit, but as soon as I stepped onto the track, I panicked. I cut off other drivers, quickly picked up speed, and I was afraid to slow it down. Instead of smoothly stopping, I sharply pressed on the brakes. Because of that, I nearly caused 2 accidents. One time, I think the instructor even turned gray with fear after a lesson with me. The irony is that my exam was coming up. The date fell on my birthday. I was delighted because I could surprise my parents and immediately get behind the wheel of my gift. I left for the exam early in the morning to take it early and head home to my party. I had no doubt that luck was on my side today. There were very few cars on the road, and I did everything that the inspector demanded of me. And I got my cherished license. That was my first gift today. I was rushing home as fast as I could. When I got there, my guests were already waiting for me. There were many cousins, uncles, and aunts. Among them, by the way, were Uncle Steve and Aunt Marion, who had a farm not far from us. After the official part where I welcomed everyone, we finally moved on to the best part, the part where I got my present. You should have seen how much there was. I was also given rare collectible books and expensive jewelry, but there was no main gift among them. I waited for my dad to say the word. Dad went to the center of the room and began to recite his long speech about how much of an adult I am now, about responsibility and blah, blah, blah. Finally, he got to the main point and said that he and my mom, along with Uncle Steve, prepared a gift for me. Uncle Steve was a very rich man, probably even the richest in this room, so they were going to give me a really cool car, maybe even a Mustang. After his long speech, Dad finally invited everyone to the backyard where the gift was waiting for me. It seemed to me very strange that he chose the backyard because there was grass everywhere and there was no asphalt for a car at all. Dad opened the doors. Everyone started clapping enthusiastically, but I didn't understand why. There was some stupid horse with a gift ribbon on it in the yard, but my car was nowhere to be seen. Stop! Wait! Is this horse my present? It can't be! But what about a red convertible Mustang or a Porsche with velour seats? A horse? Why on earth do I even need a horse? I was very angry, but since I was raised right, I didn't show it. I smiled. With a blissful smile on my face, I saw off the guests so that I could talk to my father as soon as possible. When everyone left, my parents came up to me and asked what I thought about the gift. No longer worried about the guest, I told them everything. They weren't very happy to hear that, especially my father. Mom, seeing how angry he was, decided to explain to me that my parents really wanted to make me happy and thought about the gift for a long time. They also hoped that the horse would teach me responsibility and that I needed to take care of others. I thought this was a really stupid explanation, so I decided I didn't feel like talking about it anymore and locked myself in my room. I sat near the window and looked at the stars, thinking about what had happened. I looked down and saw that my gift was looking at me. The horse tried to reach the trough with water, but the rope was pulled taut and he couldn't approach it. I felt sorry for him. Now it seemed that I was the only one who could take care of him. I went downstairs and slowly approached him. The horse also seems to have chosen a wait-and-see strategy. He was waiting to see what my next step would be. I was afraid of him because I had never seen horses up close before, so I carefully pushed the water trough for him. The horse began to drink greedily. Poor guy! I gently reached out my hand to stroke him. The horse snorted slightly when he felt me touch him. I stroked him, and it seems he didn't mind. Then I turned around and left. That was the end of my meeting with him. Sitting in my room, I thought that this was a very strange gift. I've never encountered horses, but my father has. Maybe this is a gift with a deep meaning that I didn't know about. I got curious and started Googling information about horses. I think I got so carried away that I sat up until late at night. In the morning, I stood in the living room and watched him. The horse was racing somewhere, trying to get off the lead. I went over to the horse. He seemed even more powerful and dignified during the day. My father saw my interest. He came up to us with a saddle. I don't know where he got it from, but apparently he and my mother had been thinking about everything for a long time. Dad put the saddle on him, and the horse didn't even care. My father, with a wave of his hand, invited me to get in the saddle. I was very scared, but the feeling of curiosity was even stronger. The feeling was extraordinary. It felt like I was in a rocking boat or riding a motorcycle. At least the horse made the same grunting sounds. We spent about half a day with the horse, and at the same time, Dad told me everything he knew about horses. He especially talked about how to take care of them. I noticed that the horse fizzled out pretty quickly. I spent the next few days with Thunder. That's what I named the horse. Since the day I gave him the name, I became very close to him. Thunder was very calm and even crouched down whenever I tried to climb into the saddle. I was already riding quite confidently. Dad came with me less and less. Once, when no one was home, I went up to Thunder. He gazed into the distance. Although our yard was huge, Thunder seemed to want to go beyond his territory. Of course, how can our backyard be big enough for such a giant? Then, while no one was at home, I decided that it was time to show him his surroundings. I opened the gates of our house and left the yard already on horseback. Previously, I had only left it on my own 2 feet or in my father's car. We walked slowly through the streets of our city, passerbys looking at us and were surprised. But everyone seemed to be delighted with the fact that not only cars were driving around the city. Thunder and I were so tired of avoiding the gawking pedestrians that we went onto the road. I know, it's stupid. But I had a license and I knew all the rules of the road, so I decided that if I was careful, then I could. We walked alongside the road. Now the drivers were staring at us. We reached the first traffic light. When the light turned red, a car appeared to our left, a red convertible with a bunch of teenagers. Guessing who was sitting inside? My classmates. At first, they just stared at the horse on the road, and then they saw me on his back. You should have seen their faces. They were very surprised, and then they began to mock me. One of them drank his soda, squeezed the can, and threw it at Thunder. This made me very angry, but Thunder got even angrier. He began to snort loudly, making warlike sounds, and then raised his front hoof, acting like he was about to trample them. My classmates were so scared that they drove off on a yellow. To be honest, I was pretty scared too, but it was fun to punish those arrogant jerks. When the light turned green, we chased after their car. I wanted to overtake their sports car. Intellectually, I understood that it was almost impossible, but you should have seen the breakneck speed that we were racing at. Of course, it's not every day that you see a horse chasing you in your rearview mirror. By the way, we weren't far behind them and even practically caught up with them. But for some reason, Thunder began to drastically slow down. He was badly exhausted. I pulled the bridle and led him onto the pedestrian sidewalk. At that moment, I saw how blue and red lights played somewhere ahead around the corner. This patrol car called over my classmates for violating the speed limit. The policeman stopped them at the side of the road. It seems that my classmates were in trouble. Thunder and I quickly turned the corner so we wouldn't get in trouble ourselves. We were already late at home. I thought I would sneak home and take Thunder to our makeshift stable, a small barn where we kept our garden tools. But my parents were already waiting for us. On the internet, videos were already posted of a horse chasing a sports car. My parents looked very angry. Dad started waving his hands, threatening me. At first, he scolded me for being irresponsible, then calmed down and explained that the horse is not a toy and he needs to be treated with care. Dad said that Thunder needs even more supervision because he was a racer, which is why he gets tired so quickly. It turns out that Thunder was a racehorse for a very long time and actively participated in races where he was not spared, and now heavy loads are forbidden to him. Otherwise, everything could end in tears. If not for Uncle Steve and Dad, Thunder could have been put to sleep because the horse could no longer run and bring profit to its owners. Dad and my uncle saved the horse from death and gave it to me. Now I finally understand the meaning of my father's gift. He hoped that Thunder and I will become the friends we both needed so badly. My parents were worried that I had no friends at all, but I didn't want and don't want to be friends with those arrogant snobs at school, especially not after the incident on the road. Thunder looked at me and licked my hand. Dad saw this and said that Thunder was showing me that he trusts me. Thunder and I have become real friends. And that may sound strange, but I even trust him with my secrets. I hope when I graduate from the school where these rich hypocrites study that I can meet new people and make human friends. In the meantime, Thunder and I will keep an eye on each other. Tell me, what are the most unusual gifts you've gotten? Write about them in the comments, like this video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Hi everyone, my name is Lola and I've always wanted to be an only child. Actually, I was an only child for a long time, and then something went wrong and I ended up with 6 younger sisters. Do you think that sounds fun and cute? Oh, I hate to disappoint you. I had to live in the middle of a kindergarten, and sometimes I want to completely wipe myself off the face of the earth for at least a day. But first things first, I had a really happy childhood. My parents simply adored me and did everything to make me happy. I was cared for and cherished and, well, somewhat spoiled. It was bound to happen. After all, I was my parents' only daughter, so I always had all the best toys, electronics, and clothes. Sometimes I remember my past life as an endless holiday, and with horror, I understand that it will never be like that again. Despite the fact that I had absolutely everything I needed to be happy, I still wanted more. And what do you want when you have everything? Well, of course, a brother or sister. This can be called self-indulgence or a whim, and looking back, I can safely say it was a very foolish mistake, but that doesn't change the fact that every single day I insisted that I urgently needed a sibling. Well, my parents also wanted to have another child, and we often talked about it. At some point, we found out that my mother could not get pregnant, and the topic of a second child became a very painful one for our family. My parents went to doctor after doctor and spent an insane amount of money. Mom began to get depressed, and my life was no longer as cloudless and carefree as it used to be. The gloomy, tense faces of my parents affected my mood, and because of their visits to clinics, they had no time, no resources, and no money for me. Then I no longer wanted either a brother or sister. I just wanted everything in our family to be the same as it used to be. But there was no turning back, and nothing could be changed. Then one day, Mom and Dad told me that I would become an older sister. My mom was pregnant. At that moment, I had very mixed and incomprehensible feelings. On the one hand, I was glad that my childhood dream and my parents' dream had come true. On the other hand, I understood that this was the end. When my sibling arrived, my life would only get worse. All my parents' attention would be focused on him, and he would be the spotlight, and I would become a second-class child. Mom's pregnancy was proceeding well, apart from one, but her belly grew very quickly as it was doubling every day. And although I don't know much about pregnant women, even to me, her growth seemed, to put it mildly, strange. Our relatives, acquaintances, and neighbors also sounded the alarm. In general, everyone who saw my mother's stomach had something to say. At the next checkup with the doctor, my parents were informed that they would have twins, 2 girls, and that was what made my mother's belly grow so rapidly. It made sense, and my parents were very happy with the news. 2 children at once? It was as if the second one was a reward for the long wait. I was shocked by the news and definitely didn't share my parents' excitement about the 2 babies in the house. Oh my God! And then something incredible and terrifying began to happen because my parents' reward for the long years of waiting and for their second child began to grow exponentially. First, we were told that there would be not 2, but 3 kids. Then 2 weeks later, there turned out to be not 3, but 4. And this was a real shock for all of us. 4 babies? What were we supposed to do with them? How could anyone survive that many babies? At one point, I wanted to escape from all this madness and asked my grandmother to let me stay with her for a while. But my grandmother didn't want to take care of me, and our relationship was tense, so that idea had to be dropped. I only had a few more weeks ahead of me to prepare mentally for the new additions to our family. Soon, my parents went to the hospital where my mother was to give birth to my 4 sisters. I waited for them at home, feeling numb and depressed. I had a rough idea of how it would go. They would call me to say, "Lola, congratulations, you have 4 sisters." And then probably they would tell me their names, but I was definitely not going to remember them all. Then they would bring all those newborn girls home. How was I supposed to be happy about any of that? Everything went pretty much the way I thought it would. My dad called me and began to congratulate me on the fact that I became an older sister, all according to the script. The only thing was there was some kind of mismatch with the numbers. You see, he said that I had not 4, but 6 sisters. Dad, you obviously miscalculated. You're so excited, I said sarcastically, but my dad assured me that my mom gave birth to exactly 6 girls and not one less. Then he said something else about the names. They needed to come up with new ones, but I didn't hear him. I just fell on the bed and started crying, not for joy, that's for sure. But as soon as I calmed down, I thought, why am I sulking here? 4 or 6, that's only 2 sisters. 4 or 6, what's the difference? I think that when there are more than 3 babies, there's no real meaning anymore. Then hell began. All my sisters were brought home, and there was not a single minute where they were silent at the same time. At best, there was only one of them screaming, but usually either all of them were screaming or they screamed in pairs, creating truly horrific duets. I bought myself earplugs and noise-canceling headphones. They were the only thing that partly saved me. I won't even try to imagine how my parents were feeling. The girls grew up. On the one hand, they became funnier, but on the other hand, they started causing trouble and they were sometimes unbearable, crawling all over the house and breaking things. But when one of them was in a good mood, I didn't mind playing with them. In those moments, I was sincerely glad that I had sisters. I couldn't help but be moved by them, but I still had to spend as much time out of the house as possible so as not to go crazy. When I finished school, my sisters were already 5 years old. Oh, my diploma turned out to be another difficult quest. The girls tried to prevent me from getting an education, but still I defeated them. Now I plan to enter a medical university, which I especially chose in another city in order to live separately from our in-home kindergarten. I think you understand me. Despite the fact that by the time I had come to love and accept each of my sisters, I needed peace and quiet in order to get a degree and not flunk out for the first semester, and studying at a university and our home are completely incompatible concepts. But 4 days before I planned to move out, something terrible happened. My parents and sisters had an accident on their way home from the children's clinic. They didn't make it the last couple of blocks home. Fortunately, the little ones were not hurt at all thanks to the car seats, but my parents were seriously injured and had to be hospitalized. There was no time to think, and I didn't even hesitate. Immediately, I went to the scene of the accident and took my sisters home so that they would not end up in a boarding school while my parents were in the hospital. That's when the fun began. I had to step in for Mom and Dad for an indefinite period of time and find a way to take care of all of my sisters. It turns out that Isabel doesn't eat meat at all, no matter what. She has had to be a vegetarian since birth. If you try to feed her any kind of animal protein, she will get sick. I didn't even know that my parents cooked separately for her. Another one of my sisters, Margaret, said that she was allergic to all red vegetables and fruit, looking at the plate in front of her, which contained red peppers and tomatoes. And if I even lick a spoon that touches any of this food, I'll start choking right away, she said. I was shocked. That night, I began to really understand how my parents feel when they take care of these 6 little hooligans. There are 6 of them, and they're all so different, and each of them needs a different approach, a different menu. Oh my God. My parents are saints. Personally, it took all my energy, time, and patience just to feed them. And I was even scared to think that I would have to spend time with my sisters. And then there was the walk. You know, if I ever have a child, then he will definitely not go for walks. Well, maybe he will, but definitely not with me. The petty hooligans ran in different directions. They all went about their own business, and sometimes they tried to play hide and seek with me or with each other, causing all kinds of little problems. And considering that on top of my 6 sisters, there are 3 or 4 dozen more children on the playground, that became hell for me. Besides that, I can't even begin to say how much effort it took to get all my sisters together again to take them home. But I won't talk about it because it hurts me to remember it. In the evening, I had to feed them again, then bathe them and put them to bed. With food, it was the same headache as before. It seems that it would be easier to feed an army than these little goblins. And by this point, my strength was gone. I just wanted to disappear, disintegrate, or go back in time. But if not me, then who? I had to pull myself together and keep moving forward. When I bathed my sisters, our house became as wet as if a flood had just come through. And when we went to bed, each girl wanted to hear a different fairy tale. At that moment, my patience ran out, and I shouted at them that there wouldn't be any fairy tales at all. I was going to sleep, but if one of them dared to get out of bed, then I couldn't promise what I would do. There was absolute silence in the room, and I went to bed. Fatigue and hatred of my sisters were raging in me when I fell asleep. I was already half asleep when I felt a kiss on my cheek, and then another one, and another. 6 times. It was my sisters. They came to kiss me and wish me good night. They thanked me for taking care of them and called me kind and gentle like Mom. When they left, I started tearing up. After all, it was worth it. The next 8 days passed uneventfully, and then my mother was discharged from the hospital, and we began to take care of the girls together. I realized that I love them very much and do not want to go anywhere. This is my home and my family. Would you like to have 6 younger sisters? Write your answers in the comments, like this video, and subscribe to our channel.